Have you ever felt like you're just swimming in information? Emails, alerts, just constant data, like you're always doing something but maybe not really being. It can leave you feeling a bit detached, maybe struggling to find that balance, or even enjoy things you used to love. Well, today we're doing a deep dive into something really fascinating and maybe unexpected. It's Clint Miller's book, The Biohacker's Guide to Poetry. Yeah, the full title is Brain-Boosting Techniques Inspired by Charles Darwin's Forgotten Theory of the Power of Verse. Our mission here is to unpack a pretty surprising theory. The idea that modern life might actually be, well, aging our brains in a specific way. Dimming our emotions, our intuition. We'll look at what that means, and then, remarkably, a really simple ancient fix.
It's a fascinating pairing, isn't it? Biohacking and poetry seems almost contradictory at first glance, but as we dig in, you'll see it's incredibly profound. Understanding how our brain hemispheres work and how society might be nudging that balance. Well, it offers huge insights, not just for personal fulfillment, but also for understanding bigger societal trends. It really challenges how we see the world and, ourselves.
Okay, so let's unpack this central idea Miller puts forward.
Yeah.
That modern civilization is aging much like Darwin did. It's quite an analogy. Charles Darwin, later in life, described himself as becoming emotionally enfeebled. He actually lamented losing his taste for poetry, for art, music, things that used to give him immense pleasure. Imagine that. Losing the ability to really feel the beauty around you. It's a pretty stark image, isn't it? A mind losing its connection.
It really is. And Miller connects this to the work of Iain McGilchrist. He's a British neuroscientist, psychiatrist, and philosopher. Quite the combination. McGilchrist has this right brain theory of civilizational aging. Now, aging here isn't about getting old biologically. It's more of a societal shift. He suggests that modern society is increasingly set up to make us left brain dominant. Just quickly, the left brain, that's our logic center. Language, sequence analysis details, super important. The right brain, that's the big picture. Emotion, creativity, intuition, context, meaning. McGilchrist argues we're over-relying on the left and essentially forsaking the powers, insights, and profound emotional experiences of the right brain. It's like we're all becoming a bit like that later life Darwin. And it's not just our time. McGilchrist looked back at ancient civilizations, too. He found similar patterns. As they grew, matured, aged as civilizations, they also seemed to lose touch with that right brain axis. He mentioned, I think it was last year, that civilizations tend to overreach themselves. They build empires, and it all ends up run by rules and procedures, bureaucracy.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and when everything is about steps, metrics, protocols, it naturally favors that simple, sequential, analytic way of understanding.
The left brain specialty.
Exactly. And the more complex, holistic understanding, the right brain's domain gets pushed aside, less valued, maybe even less possible in that structure. So it subtly discourages, deep creativity or emotional connection. It favors procedure over wisdom, almost.
That distinction really clicks when you look around today, doesn't it? That societal favoring of one side. McGilchrist's big book, The Master and His Emissary, it really dives deep into this. He talks about how the left hemisphere often dominates, using this reductive, mechanistic method of thinking. It's everywhere. It's like trying to understand a symphony just by analyzing the notes on the page.
Yeah.
You see the structure, the parts, but you miss the music, the feeling, the whole thing. That left brain way is efficient for certain tasks, no doubt. But it lacks that emotional depth, the intuition, the grasp of the whole that the right brain offers. And here's where it gets, well, I think really interesting. McGilchrist uses this incredible analogy from Einstein, who obviously had both sides working, right? He said, the rational mind is a faithful servant, but the intuitive mind is a precious gift. Just think about that. The left brain is the faithful servant, does the tasks, analyses, organizes, crucial. But the right brain, that's the precious gift. Intuition, creativity, empathy, that deeper understanding.
Exactly. And McGilchrist's conclusion from that is quite powerful, maybe a little sobering. He says, we live in a world that has honored the servant, but has forgotten the gift. He even made this really striking claim back in 2021, I think, that we behave like people who have right hemisphere damage.
Wow. That's strong.
It is. It's provocative. It suggests this isn't just some abstract philosophical idea. It has real-world consequences for how we live, how we feel. So it begs the question, right? If this shift is so widespread, what are the actual symptoms? What's the personal cost of this imbalance in our lives? What happens when we get so good at being the servant, we forget we even have these precious gifts?
That's a critical question. And Clint Miller tackles it directly, moving from the theory to what he's actually seen. He says this isn't just abstract, it's a universal problem. And maybe the most surprising part is that it can often strike young for high achievers. So it's not just something that happens in old age, it's affecting young people across different cultures, and it seems to be speeding up. Miller talks about his time teaching gifted students all over the world, and his observations are, well, they're startling. He started noticing symptoms of this right brain decline as early as middle school.
Middle school, wow.
Yeah. These are super bright kids, really capable, but he saw them start to lose their enjoyment for many of their prior passions. And it was in response to societal and institutional cues. Think about that. A young musician gives up their instrument, an artist stops drawing. Not because they found something else, but because those things didn't seem useful for getting ahead.
They're optimizing.
Exactly. They're pruning away parts of themselves that don't fit the perceived path to success.
Right. These students, incredibly smart, they start to calculate their best path to a top-ranking school or a selective job. Every choice courses, activities, it's all meticulously planned for the resume. This process, Miller points out, just puts the left brain into total overdrive, intense analytical focus. But here's the crucial bit. Despite this pressure, this relentless drive, they show absolutely no signs of conventional cognitive decline.
Right, they're acing tests.
Totally. They often succeed brilliantly under all that stress. Top grades, great schools, elite jobs. By all typical measures, they're smashing it. But connecting back to McGilchrist's idea, Miller sees this profound internal cost. While they're achieving all this external success, many feel they've sacrificed important parts of themselves. Specifically, the right brain stuff. That sense of wonder, the emotional connection, the holistic view, it gets sidelined. He says the symptoms get acute in high school and then become a chronic condition by college. It's not just a phase.
It deepens.
It deepens. And he stresses this pattern is getting more prevalent and pronounced with each new generation, and it's worldwide. He saw it in intense systems like in China and India, not just the West. It's a global side effect of modern high achievement with this hidden emotional toll.
So what does this actually mean for you, the listener? It means these individuals, often without even realizing it, get trapped in the left brain reality of the servant. They forget it's even possible to access the right brain reality of precious gifts. And here's the really tough part. Getting the goal, the top school, the fancy job, it often doesn't fix it. Miller says it only exacerbates it.
Reinforces the pattern.
Exactly. It validates the very approach that caused the imbalance. And long-term. By old age, Miller suggests, this can become emotionally crippling, just like Darwin feared. Life can start to feel devoid of all pleasure and happiness. That vibrancy, that richness, it just fades. A kind of deep detachment from joy. Okay, that paints a pretty grim picture, a big societal trend, a personal struggle.
Yeah.
But did Darwin himself, the one who felt this decline so keenly, did he ever find a way back? Did he identify any kind of remedy?
He did. And this is where the story really comes full circle, quite beautifully. Despite his own sadness about it, Darwin identified what he thought was the most promising remedy. And the answer, perhaps surprisingly, was poetry.
Poetry.
Really. Not just a casual thought, but something he felt strongly based on his own experience. Miller explains how it works. He says, poetry with rhythm and rhyme rejuvenates the right brain while training the left brain to access it. It's not just about liking poems, it's a neuro-integrative thing. Think about it. When you read poetry, especially stuff with a clear rhythm and rhyme, you're engaging different parts of your brain at once. The left brain is handling the words, the structure, the literal meanings.
Okay.
But the rhythm, the cadence, the musicality, that really lights up the right brain's ability for pattern, emotion, the overall feel.
Ah, interesting.
It's like a workout for both hemispheres together. The imagery, the metaphors. They force the logical left brain to kind of reach over to the right brain to really get the meaning, not just decode the words. And Darwin's forgotten theory that Miller mentions, it wasn't like a published scientific paper on poetry's neurology. It was more his personal testimony, right? He deeply regretted losing his appreciation for poetry and music because he saw it as a direct loss of happiness. He realized his intense scientific focus had, over years, weakened the very parts of his mind that enjoyed art. He actually said if he could live his life over, he'd have made a rule to read some poetry and listen to some music at least once every week.
Wow. He really felt its absence.
Deeply. He knew, intuitively perhaps, that art was vital for a mental balance that pure analysis couldn't give him. He saw poetry's power to connect him back to feeling, to beauty, to the bigger story, all right brain functions he felt he'd let wither. So poetry isn't just passive enjoyment, it's active brain training. It's like training the mental servant to consciously access the precious gifts of the intuitive mind. It gives us, as Miller puts it, exactly the kind of hemispheric tune-up that modern civilization requires, pulling us back towards balance.
That's really quite hopeful, isn't it? The idea that we can actively retrain our brains, reconnect with those gifts. And the way Miller suggests doing it is so simple. He proposes reading poetry for just a few minutes each day. That's it. And he suggests this small habit can lead to massive changes in emotion, perception, even how you experience reality.
Yeah, things like more empathy, maybe feeling more creative again, a deeper sense of beauty, purpose, joy.
You might feel less anxious, more grounded, more tuned in to life's subtleties that the analytical mind tends to screen out. And Miller's book even gives you a starting point. Part 2 has poetry selections chosen specifically for this biohacking purpose. So you can literally start that hemispheric tune-up right away. It's not about becoming a poetry expert, but using this ancient art form intentionally for your own well-being. So what a journey we've taken in this deep dive. From McGilchrist's right brain theory of civilizational aging, this idea of the dominant faithful servant, to the very real personal cost, especially for high achievers, of neglecting those precious gifts. And finally, landing on Darwin's quite surprising yet accessible remedy. Poetry, a hemispheric tune-up.
Exactly. And this is where knowing this stuff becomes really valuable, right? When you understand it and then think about how to apply it. This deep dive really pushes us to look critically at how our schools, workplaces, and institutions worldwide seem to favor left brain dominance. What might that mean for your own life? What kind of balance are you looking for between that sharp analysis and that rich, intuitive understanding? Just recognizing this trend, the societal leaning, is maybe the first step toward finding a more conscious, more whole way of thinking and feeling. It's about being smart, sure, but also wise and connected.
Right. So let's bring it back to you listening. What does all this mean for you personally? If just a few minutes of poetry each day engaging with that rhythm, that rhyme, could start to reshape your mind, maybe even your world for the better. What small shift could you make starting today to reconnect with your own precious gifts? You know, that creativity, that intuition, that emotional depth that might feel a bit neglected. How might you start to rebalance your own internal scales, aiming for a more vibrant, more holistic way of living? It's definitely a thought worth sitting with. Maybe even with a poem